and welcome to Season 4 of Lightwork Presents Everything is Connected, where we share the interesting and inspiring stories of artists, critical thinkers, thought leaders, and art professionals on a wide range of topics about life, work, society, success, failure, and the ways in which we navigate the journey. We share ideas on our inspirations and the influences that affect our lives. I'm your host, Folasade Ologundudu, and I look forward to sharing the conversations that I have with artists and creative professionals across the art industry and beyond. As I travel to art fairs, gallery openings, and events within the creative industries both in the U.S. and abroad, join me in discovering and learning about some of today's most interesting and dynamic artists and creative professionals. If you're new to the show, I'm happy to have you here. If you've been on this journey with me, welcome back. Let's get it.
On this episode, I'm joined by Jammie Holmes as we discuss his work and practice, the journey that led him into art, and the focus of his practice today. His exhibition, Morning Thoughts, at Marianne Boesky Gallery is on view when we sit down to talk about his origin story and some of the ideas he's investigating in this latest body of work. We discuss his personal journey, from his roots and hometown of Louisiana to moving to Texas. Holmes is self-taught, and he discovered his passion for storytelling through painting. In the episode, he highlights his transition from figurative to narrative painting and incorporating floral motifs into his work. Holmes reflects on his heritage, his Sierra Leonean roots, and his personal journey of self-acceptance and identity. Holmes blends poetry and surrealism into his narrative paintings, striving to strike a balance between visual and emotional storytelling, incorporating portraiture, symbolism, and written text into his work. His work has been included in numerous group exhibitions, including Afro-Atlantic Histories, which traveled to the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, and the National Gallery of Art Washington, D.C., and the Dallas Museum of Art. Let's dive into my latest episode with Jammie Holmes.
My name is Jammie Holmes, narrative painter.
Let's start with the fact that you're based in Texas currently.
It's home because I moved here, but forever my home will be Thibodaux, Louisiana.
Got you. So you've been in Texas for how long?
I think the past 7 years.
Are any of the things that brought you to Texas initially part of your art career or separate?
No. When I moved to Texas, I was in search for a job and also was ready to take a risk. I was working on an oil field, and when I moved to Texas, I was just looking for a better job. The oil field had just went down, and I was like, this is a perfect opportunity to try something different. So I moved to Dallas, and I found a job in manufacturing, which it was still similar to the oil field, so a total of 15 years just in manufacturing as a whole, but the oil field maybe 13 years. And from there, I just started working, but I always knew I wanted to do something different with my life. And somehow art, painting came to my life.
Yeah, I would love to talk a little bit more about that journey as much as you'd like to share. When you speak about wanting to do something different with your life and how art came to you, do you think that there is, as you recall it, was there something, a particular moment, a particular memory, some time that kind of got you to the place of saying, art is the thing that I want to do with my life?
When I moved here, I would write a lot. I would write these random poems in my phone or in different notepads. And I've always sketched for a very long time, but I didn't think art was like painting anything or sketching would get me anywhere. I just thought it was just one of those things that every kid does until an adult. One day I was sketching at my desk in my office at work, and this guy walked up and he was like, "Hey, I like that sketch. You ever went to the Modern?" And I was like, "What's the Modern?" And he explained it was an art museum, and it was crazy because I had never heard the term of art museum together. I've always thought a museum was like a place for artifacts, Civil War memorabilia, and things like that. I took it upon myself to go. I was really shocked at what I saw because at the time I didn't know the difference between contemporary art, Renaissance art, abstract, and all those things. So it was a bunch of different things that I wasn't expected to see. Like I walked in and it was a cause exhibition up, and it was easy for me to digest that. I was like, okay, I see the colors, and it was like real easy to digest that versus if I would have walked up to a Rocco, like a Rothko piece instantly, I don't think that I would have been able to decipher what was going on in that. Like, I didn't see no lines. I just saw a bunch of color. Or if I would have walked up to Jackson Pollock at the time, but that wasn't the case. It was a cause exhibition. And it was easy for me to digest that enough for me to fall in love with saying that I could do this. This is something that I could do as well. So I went buy some paint and canvas and just kept trying to express myself with the paint on canvas, like trying to express how I was feeling at the moment. And eventually it just kept developing.
And so now you're a full-time artist, full-time painter. And would you say that the journey that you've taken and where your career has gone so far, has any of it been really surprising to you?
It's always a surprise. Every day is a surprise. It feels like it's surreal. You know, like when I think about my children's education is funded by me painting, or the things that my kids have is all funded by me painting. And it's wow, people care that much about my paintings to where they want to hang it in their homes or institutions. So it's a real humbling experience. I grew up humble, and to see where I'm at now is always like a shocking experience. So I'm always excited about something. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's just being excited that this is pretty much my everyday life. I get to come here. That's why I come to my studio every day, because it could be worse. I could be working somewhere else that I don't like. So this is gravy.
You have on view now a really wonderful show at Marianne Boesky. It's been extended through the end of the year, which is great. What has that journey been like to work with galleries, to have people see your work in different spaces, and to be able to share your artistic vision and the way that you're thinking with the art world and just with a larger audience, with your own friends in your own community, with your family? How has that experience been for you?
It's been really great. I felt like when I started working with Marianne, I noticed my development. I really noticed Marianne had this thing about her to where she wanted me to take my time. Don't focus on anything else. Go to your studio, take your time, and really be who you want to be, who you are. You'll get there. Just focus. She made me feel like an artist. At the time, I knew I was a painter, but I didn't even want to tell people what I did for a living. I was like here and there, but it wasn't until I got with her. I don't think that I'm shy. I'm just real private about just who I am. Just my life. I try to keep the things that I love. I try to save it for my friends and family. I try to save me for my friends and family, because that's all you have. At the end of all of this, that's all I have. So I was just kind of, because it was still a surreal moment at the time as well. It was like, artists, like, how do you explain to people that haven't even been to a museum before? Because I'm still around people that I grew up around. I still go to the neighborhood that my grandmother lived in. So it's like, how do you explain to people what you're doing? And so with Marianne, she started making me feel like, no, you're an artist. You're an artist. Understand. So she gave me the courage to claim that I love her for that. Like, she's real, like, no, claim that. You're an artist. That's what you are. So it's just been a real great opportunity working with her, because it's just been helping me continue to develop. And she's been giving me, I didn't know the Venice Biennale. I didn't know what that was. I'm locked into my studio. I don't pay attention to the outside world much. She's, hey, you need to go to Italy. Go see the Caravaggios. Go see this. Go see that. And I'm like, you know what? I need to do that. I need to get out and do that. So those are on my bucket list. I've never seen the Caravaggio's out in Rome. So there's a lot that's going to be coming in the near future.
When you say that, you're making me think about it with anticipation. What do you mean?
Yeah, so just being able to travel and go out and see those things, to be inspired in a different way, because I spend so much time in my studio. It's about that time to go see the world, go to some of these events that's out in the art world. I'm always in my studio, so I don't really lock into it. Even though it looks like I'm on Instagram, I'm really not on Instagram. I get on and I get off. So I don't even know what's happening
I thought you were
half the
going to tell
time.
me that's somebody else on there.
No, that's definitely me. But I get on and I get off. I'll post on my stories and get off. I don't like too much outside distractions, especially while I'm trying to create from within.
You got to stay focused.
Right.
Definitely. Maybe we can turn a little bit now and talk about the show that's on view at Marianne now.
Yeah, so I was in Hong Kong and I had more time to think. And I realized I always say figurative artist. And then I realized I'm more of a narrative artist because I love telling stories. And being a narrative artist, you don't have to tell stories through a figure. You could tell stories through like the painting I've done in the past, Black Hearts or the Sparrows, or this exhibition right now, which is all floral. So this was my opportunity to showcase my skill set as a narrative artist. I took the chance on just saying, you know what? I want to tell the story of my community in a different way without having to paint figures. And that's when I decided to go floral. But when I decided to go floral, I didn't know what that looked like. I was like, okay, so if I was a plant, what would I be closely related to? How would I feel? What flowers? What? So it gave me something that I really love to do is research. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do some research. And I still couldn't really form what I was feeling because I had never been a flower before. So one day I was walking around my neighborhood, walking by the studio, and I have this street pole and it's full of morning glories. And by the time I would leave, they'll be dead, all withered away. I was like, wow, that's awkward. Like these things, they don't even last that long. The purple is so gorgeous. So I did some research and found out morning glories and they bloom and they go away the same day. So I thought that was really interesting. And then really started clicking in. And I was like, you know what? That's what I'm gonna go with. Because in my neighborhood and a bunch of neighborhoods around the world, temporariness exists, temporary beauty, a temporary life. Some people in my family didn't even get a chance to grow to their full potential before they pass away. So when I looked at that, I realized I could relate more to that side of the plant world, the flower world, is that temporariness of success, of life, of beauty, of all those things. So I moved towards morning glories and daily.
And I think what's really interesting is how you got to the place where you really wanted to make this switch to describing yourself as a narrative painter. Can you speak a little bit more about what really made you think about that? And then once you had considered it, that you were ready to say that. And again, to the point that you said earlier about Marianne being really helpful and just sharing an idea with you, like the comfort that comes in actually just calling something what it is.
So when I was in Hong Kong, it was a discussion me and Marianne had, and it was the confirmation from her that gave me the courage to say, I'm a narrative artist. Like that is correct. And I need to own that, hey, dude, you're a narrative artist. You paint stories and you love storytelling. So that gives me the freedom. Marianne gave me the freedom to use her gallery to approach that the way I wanted to approach that. And it came out in a floral sense. I don't think that 2 years ago, I would have been brave enough to say I'm a narrative artist and I'm going to try to paint Black culture in a different light outside of figurative. But I knew I had that in me already because, again, I lean towards more of poetry than actually seeing something visual. I love the poetry of being able to create and tell stories. Poetry reminds me of surrealism. You hear things and it sounds so gorgeous. So I wanted to take that approach to it all, more poetic approach to what I'm going to do moving forward and what I've done in the past.
Beautiful.
This is the very first time I've ever done a solo exhibition that is pretty much a 90% floral.
I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the works in the show and the color palette that you've chosen and some of the material choices that you've made. Could we talk a little bit about Daylily 2024? You have a photo, there's a bit of gold leaf. There's also the use of the Pan-African colors inserted into these works in a really subtle but touching way. It's different than the really overt way of showing the Pan-African flag. You do it through a butterfly or through a small insect. So I wanted to ask a little bit about really the composition of this work, because what dominates the picture plane or the canvas plane is the daylilies. It looks like there's 3 or 4 of them. They're quite large. And they're all in front of leaves that are in the background. And then you have the small butterfly, like on a little, just on a piece of a leaf. And then on the very right side, there's an African sculpture. It looks like a wood carving encased in a frame. And the figure is somewhat nude, but slightly covered at the bottom half, nude at the top half, and harkens back to ideas of African ritual, ceremony, religious beliefs. And I'm really curious about this work. Can you speak a little bit about some of the things that are happening?
Yes, whenever I started to approach this painting and this series, I didn't have a clue how I wanted to start. I grew up with all female cousins that was my age, and all my guy cousins was way older than me. So I was the youngest boy. They would always play double dutch, and I would watch them. I felt like I was playing double dutch with this painting because I was like, man, where do I start? I don't even know what I want to do. I took some time away from my studio. I went down the street and I went to a thrift shop, and I saw this image of this lady with 3 kids behind her. And I was like, this is so powerful. And I was like, this picture don't belong here. I'm taking this with me. And I took it to my studio. And that was the beginning of this. That image gave me the confidence, and it was like a blueprint to this full painting that it is. And that's why I added the actual image there. So the daylilies represent her and the kids that was in the image. And to the right side, to the right side with the African sculpture, that wasn't planned in the beginning. I didn't know what I really was going to do with that. But a lot of times I feel like when I'm painting, I'm having more than one conversation in my head. And I love painting from a stream of consciousness, like being able to use that as a time stamp of how I'm feeling at the moment. At the moment, I was thinking of just my identity as a whole. My dad is from Sierra Leone, and it's always on my mind because we never had a relationship. And I never wanted to accept that side of me. I would not tell my friends my dad is African. I can only imagine the things that they would say. We don't have a real diverse neighborhood. It's either you're black or you're white, and that's just pretty much it.
Right.
So
you're definitely not, you don't even want to really claim being African. That's a new thing.
It's such a new thing at home. Yeah. Like I still feel like I'm the only African at home. So that conversation has been on my mind a lot because I had met my dad when I first started painting. He came to not when I first started, I would say first started. He came to my studio in 20, and that was the first time I ever had met him as an adult. It was awkward because he was an adult and I was an adult. And it never dawned on me that I would feel like that. When I met him, I didn't see him as dad. I saw him as just an everyday man because I have sons now. So I'm my son's dad and I'm in their life 24 all the time. So I realized the connection wasn't there. Like he missed that window of opportunity of connecting with me on that nurturing level. So it's always been on my mind for like years and years now. And even since I met him, sometimes I wonder if I should have met him. Maybe I would not think as much about him. But now that I met him, I think about it all the time. So when I was painting that full on painting, and I'm thinking about giving life and how beautiful like Mother Earth, and I see this lady with her kids, and so on this painting you have all the extra buds that's growing, giving new life, and all those things. And then to the right there's that sculpture, and at the time I was thinking about it, and I decided to use a female sculpture from West Africa. And with that, it was because of that idea of fertility, giving life, Mother Earth, new life. And that was the beginning of the whole series. It was like, how could I not start there where life started?
Yeah, absolutely. That's really beautiful. And I think it's a way for us to just think about all of the ways in which your work is really informed by your personal life. And I think it really is a beautiful way to harken back to that change and that shift that you spoke about earlier when you began to describe yourself and think of yourself as a narrative painter, and pulling on these different references from the experiences that you've had, from your family, from maybe things that are part of you, but they're not super close to you in a way, right? Because my dad is also African. He's Nigerian, and he recently passed away. Similar to some of what you described, he wasn't in my life in the way that I would have wanted him to be, but the pride I've always had in being Nigerian is really strong, which seems pretty different than how you described it for yourself personally. It's really interesting to hear you reflect on how you have interpreted and been informed and changed by the things that have happened to you, and how the way that you're creating art is potentially just like a conversation that you're starting about it, a response to it, your thoughts about it, and then being able to share this really beautiful painting language that you've created with the world. So I love that we were able to just dive into that piece specifically. I wanted to talk about maybe one other piece before we wrap up. There's, as I said, I have a lot of favorites, and there are a few that stand out. One is Morning Glory 2024. There's just this little swath of that paint at the bottom of the canvas that I'm just like, I just love that you added this little thing, this mark that it's not that little. It's pretty striking and obvious, but it's just, I don't know, it's just such an interesting choice aesthetically. But I would really rather talk about, which one? Where we go? Okay, Family 2024, and your framing and your composition here. When I was in the gallery for the opening night, I was standing behind two people talking about the work, speaking about it and having different points of view. And there was a man who was saying, clearly it's a Black family with each other, eating watermelon. There's a picket fence. They're in front of the fence. I would just love to hear you talk a little bit about this work, because unlike most of the works in the show, there are figures in this, and there are so few, considering most of the work is most of the works are of flowers. What's going on in this painting? How did you come up with this idea?
When I started that painting, it was like, why can't I create something that can be felt like erotica? I want it to be a feeling. What does a feeling actually look like with no expression? So what I decided to do is paint a feeling of, I never had a family picnic. We didn't have the white picket fence. The white picket fence was supposed to symbolize America. It was supposed to symbolize success. It was supposed to symbolize all those things. I never had those things. So that was a big ball of feelings. And you see the zebra rug again, that conversation happened with myself about my father. Like me personally, I know what I have to do about that. I know I have to go to Africa and make that part of my life, because I realize he won't give me that acceptance to say, hey, look, son, we're going to go to Africa. You know what I mean? Like Black folks in America, we've been wanting that our whole life since slavery, was to go back to Africa. And here I am with a father that is connected to Africa and wouldn't. So I know I have to start that journey on my own So knowing that, it's always on my mind. So this whole painting is more of a feeling of the temporariness that I was talking about. You got a family that's temporary. You have the zebra rug that's my identity. You have the white picket fence that could symbolize both. It could symbolize success, but that could be temporary as well. So it's like just a real big ball of that. Enjoy the fruits of your labor. Like you worked for it. Why not? Like you survived all the things that you could have been a product of your own environment. You could have been a victim of your environment as well, but you didn't. You survived, and you're showing your environment how things could be if you take a different approach to life. So this whole painting is just more of a feeling.
I feel like there's so many places we could go, but as we round out the episode, firstly, I just want to share something. For all of the folks that are listening, Jammie Holmes' Morning Thoughts is on view now until December 21st. So if you have an opportunity and you're in New York City, definitely stop by Marianne Boesky and see the show. And as we round out, Jammie, with one last question, is there, as you think about the closing of the year, the beginning of something new in 2025, this show is going to get through like the end of the year, essentially, what is something that you're looking forward to next?
I don't remember what I told you at the dinner.
Oh, okay. It's funny. So at the dinner, you were basically telling me like, so correct me if I'm wrong, but there's something about a building? For sure.
You want me to answer the question?
Yes.
One thing that I'm really excited about is I've been talking to one of my friends. He's from Ghana, and we've been planning a trip to go to Ghana and then try to make our way to Sierra Leone. It's something that I really want for myself. I feel like it's something that I would be able to, I guess, like a healing moment, if that makes sense. It's one of those things where I used to see myself wanting that from my father, but now I feel like the continent of Africa itself could give me what I've been looking for. So I feel like I'm really excited about that right there.
I love that. I feel like that pilgrimage and going back home for anyone who's of African descent to step foot on the continent is definitely needed and necessary. And I think for me, I remember I've been twice. I went to Nigeria once when I was young with my dad and some family friends. And then I went to Ghana a couple of years ago by invitation of a mutual friend I think we have in the arts, Larry Osei-Mensah. And I was with a wonderful group of people, lots of folks who were really active in the space, doing incredible work. But I think there were so many experiences that I had that were completely singular to being an African American person who's half Nigerian going back to Africa for the first time as an adult. So there was all of the hanging out with people and getting to know them better and meeting new people and all of that. But then there was all of the personal stuff that was like the feeling that you're coming home, even if Ghana is not necessarily where my people are from. My dad's Nigerian and he comes from a very important specific place within the country. There was that feeling that I'm like, I'm home. And I don't ever have to wonder where home is again because it's here.
Absolutely.
And so for everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. And Jammie Holmes' Morning Thoughts is on view now till December 21st at Marianne Boesky. Make sure you go see it. Thank you so much, Jammie, for joining me for an episode.
Thank you.
That was my episode with Jammie Holmes. I want to give a big thank you and a big shout out to Jammie for joining me on the show.
And it's a wrap, folks. That was our episode of Everything is Connected, conversations on culture and current events with some of today's hottest creative contemporaries. These episodes are recorded remotely and on location wherever in the world I find myself, whether that be the US, Africa, Europe, the Middle East, the Caribbean, and more. Depending on where I am at the time of these recordings, you will hear the sights and the sounds of my local environment. I look forward to continuing these wonderful conversations with artists and creative professionals across industries with you. I'm your host, Folasade Ologundudu, and we'll see you next time. As always, stay motivated, stay inspired, and stay up. Peace and love, y'all. We out.